In Alma 53:20, Helaman describes the 2,000 stripling warriors as they prepare for battle. And they were all young men, and they were exceedingly valiant for courage and also for strength and activity. But behold, this was not all. They were men who were true at all times in whatsoever thing they were entrusted. This scripture brings special meaning to me as a Native American. It reminds me of some great and incredible men. During World War II, the Navajo code talkers were used to devise a code that would be unbreakable. This led to a major victory for the United States. Native American men have always protected what they cherished and loved, from their families, the land where they are from, and their communities. They would give of their own lives so that others may survive. They are called warriors. These warriors were trained from a young age to defend what they love. In May 1942, the first Navajo code talkers were enlisted into the United States Marine Corps. These young men were trained and were told to come up with a code that used the Navajo language to send messages to other soldiers of troop movements, enemy positions, and other critical information that was needed on the battlefield. This is John Brown Jr. He says, and I quote, "It became serious when we started to develop that code. You know, they wouldn't let anybody in there. They kind of shut us out secretly, you know, trying to talk about it back and forth, and there's lots of guards around," end quote. This code was developed by using two different types of codes. The Type 2 code was merely a translation of the information that was needed to be conveyed from English into the Navajo language. The Type 1 code was a little more difficult. To develop the Type 1 code, the original 29 Navajo code talkers first came up with a Navajo word for each letter of the English alphabet. Since they had to memorize all the words, they used things that were familiar to them, such as animals. And this is Chester Nez. He's another code talker, and he says, and I quote, "So we start talking about different things, animals, sea creatures, birds, eagles, hawks, and all those domestic animals. Why don't we use those names of different things from A to Z? So A, we took a red ant that we live with all the time. B, we took a bear, Yogi the bear. C, a cat. D, a dog. E, an elk. F, fox. G, a goat, and so on down the line." End quote. For example, for the letter B, they use the Navajo word for bear, which is shush. For the letter C, they use a Navajo word for cat, which is musset. This was pretty amazing. They use animals such as turtles to describe equipment like tanks and dragonflies for helicopters. This code had to be kept secret so that no one could break it. These messages were conveyed through the use of handheld radios, phones, or wire and radio equipment. The message was given in English, and that message was translated into the code and relayed so information like more ammunition was needed. And back to John Brown Jr., and he says, and I quote, "The commanding officer, they give you a message that's written. It's just short talking about how much ammunition in certain map area that Marines are getting killed. They need more machine gun ammunition. You translate that as small as you can." End quote. The Navajo code talkers were assigned in the Pacific to fight against the Japanese. The messages sent were translated and sent in 2.5 minutes instead of hours if done by other soldiers. This was done with accuracy, and so this was used in other areas, such as the invasion of Iwo Jima. Over 800 messages were sent without error. This led the U.S. to take over Iwo Jima. Sadly, their act of bravery was slowly recognized. It wasn't until 1968 that the code was declassified. On August 14, 1982, Ronald Reagan declared that day as Navajo Code Talker Day. In July 1st, in July 2001, President George W. Bush Jr. honored the 4 remaining Navajo Code Talkers Medals of Honor. A monument stands in the Navajo Nation capital of Window Rock, Arizona, to recognize the incredible act of bravery committed by the Navajo Code Talkers. One by one, they are leaving us with memories, and we have nothing but hearts full of gratitude for all they have done for the United States and for the Navajo people. They were and continually are warriors that Helaman describes. They were all young men, and they were exceedingly valiant for courage and also for strength and activity. But behold, this was not all. They were all men who were true at all times in whatsoever thing they were interested. Thank you.